Well, it is January 6th, 2026. 5 years ago today, we all watched as Donald Trump's gang of terrorists, insurrectionists, invaded the Capitol building, defecated in the halls of Congress, beat police officers, broke windows, stole documents. It should have been the end. It should have been the end of Donald Trump. It should have been the end of MAGA. But 5 years later, here we are, a year into Donald Trump's second term as president of the United States, a man who has kidnapped another foreign leader and his wife, which, by the way, no one is talking about the fact that Celia Maduro, his wife, was beaten in the US government's custody. No one is talking about the fact that Maduro showed up in court looking fine. She showed up with bandages on her face and possibly broken ribs. Why does no one care about that? But then I realize, oh, we don't care about women in general. It doesn't matter if you're married to a dictator or you're married to a wannabe dictator. We don't give a shit about women. I wish somebody would bring it to someone's attention that being in US custody, the first lady of Venezuela shouldn't have been roughed up. And shouldn't somebody be answering for that? But I digress. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, dear friends. There's a lot to go through today on the 5th anniversary of January 6th. Let's get into it. So, friends, for the last, I don't know, year, I've been saying that we're not going to have midterm elections. I've been saying that Donald Trump is absolutely going to pull some type of stunt so that elections will be suspended. Maybe it will be a war. Maybe it will be uh, ushering in martial law. Maybe it will be this. Maybe it will be that. But there will be something that deters us from having midterm elections. And right now, right? What I will talk about in a little bit, the Justice Department, which was supposed to release all of the Epstein files, has released 1%, 1% of what they have. Pam Bondi has now said recently to a federal judge earlier today, oh, well, we're taking a lot of precautions in the redacting that we're doing. Really? Because you should have been doing that all year or a year ago, not over the last 30 days. But we know that on the day that Donald Trump was supposed to release the Epstein files as per the piece of legislation that he signed, he decided to bomb Venezuela instead. So before we get to where we are in terms of heading into a world war, let us look back, shall we, at where we were on January 6, 2021. These were all of the papers that woke up from their slumber to post, to write about January 6th. On January 7th, mob storms U.S. Capitol, intolerable attack on democracy, democracy attacked, assault on democracy, Capitol in chaos, sad day for America, under siege, were the titles that came out of America's newspapers. This should have been the end of Donald Trump. But as I wrote for the title of today's show, it unleashed him. We all said that January 6th was a dress rehearsal for what was to come. Well, now, dear friends, we are in the full-on production. January 6th was a dress rehearsal because Donald Trump knew in that moment when he wasn't ushered off into handcuffs, when he wasn't held accountable, when he wasn't immediately impeached, he knew that much like everything else in his life, this too shall pass. He wouldn't have to take responsibility, and he knew that Americans have the attention span of a gnat, and eventually, if he just continued to look the other way long enough and throw enough shit at the walls, it would distract people away from the fact that Donald Trump incited an insurrection, attacked our democratic institutions, tried to steal an election, and nothing happened to him. So where is Donald Trump now, 5 years removed from January 6th, with no stain on him and the people that carried out this attack, that mauled and beat our police officers? Well, they're all free, or ICE agents. But they're certainly not spending time inside of a federal prison where they belong, because Donald Trump pardoned all of the people who graced the covers of these papers that I have up here right now. The New York Times editorial board has a lengthy piece up today talking about how January 6th ushered in the era of lawlessness. And I'm like, actually, mainstream corporate media ushered in the era of lawlessness. Because without mainstream corporate media placating, sane washing Donald Trump over these last several years, do you think we would be in this position? If they, on January 7th, 2021, following the assault on our democracy, if they had continued to keep their foot on Donald Trump's neck, holding him responsible for this attack on democracy, making him the villain that he actually is, instead of using their time to sane wash his lunacy, paint him as the villain to democracy and freedom as he is, we wouldn't be in this position right now. So the audacity, folks, the audacity that mainstream corporate media has in their little solemn post on January 6th, 5 years removed, oh, this era of lawlessness. I mean, they are speaking right now about Donald Trump's operation in Venezuela as if it is fucking legitimate. We all know that it's not. It was a war crime and is a war crime that is unfolding before us. We're here because white-run institutions will never hold white men accountable for a fucking thing. That's why we are here. I don't care, Democrats this, Republicans that. No, it is whiteness and the disease of whiteness that has people believe that the more power they have and the wealth that they have, that this cloak of whiteness allows them the protection to never, ever face accountability for a goddamn thing. Democrats, as I've been speaking over the last couple of days, I'm like, they're no opposition party, friends. They were never built for anybody's fucking opposition. They are the party of corporatists and the status quo. They are the party of crumbs and let them eat cake, right? Republicans in their prototype have made it seem like Democrats do something, but that's just because Republicans have become more naked in their heinous and grotesque ends, right? But the fact is that if we had a real opposition party, January 6, 2021 would have been the fucking end. Because all you would have done is run message and ad after message and ad, coalesce over this one major attack. But that's not what Democrats did. That's not what they're doing today around Venezuela. That is not what they're doing around Greenland. No, they're all off on their own tip. But you see, you're never going to find a Democrat that is worthy of being denoted as having integrity because they all suckle off the same corporate tit. And so if you are going to be taking money in one hand, how are you going to say that you are helping up other people with the other? You are not. You are protecting your own interest and you are putting on a performance. And what I am saying is that the biggest performance that should have rocked this country to its fucking core was January 6th. That display alone should have galvanized a rightful opposition party to reclaim what we should have been fighting for this entire time, which is a multiracial democracy, not some status quo fucking, like, I don't know, fantasy bullshit that we've been indoctrinated to believe. You see, the reason why I looked earlier today, poll numbers are suggesting that Americans believe that Maduro should be facing trial for his crimes and his drug trafficking and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm saying to you, if you believe that Maduro should be on trial, then you should believe that Donald Trump should never have been president of the United States. He should have never have been allowed to run again. Because when you break them down, tell me how Maduro was different. He's not. They both stole an election. They both are weaponizing the Justice Department. They both have weaponized the military to their own ends. Right? Like they're the same person. Maduro just didn't have a big enough government. He didn't have a big enough military. He didn't have like the capitulation and the lack of resolve and resilience of a Democratic Party, of an opposition party to actually take him on. The only reason Maduro fell is because he didn't curry Trump's favor. But these men are cut from the same cloth. So the audacity for people to say, oh, Donald Trump's actions were right and he should stand trial, then Donald Trump should have stood in every trial, in every indictment that he was under. But he didn't. And so I look at this. Happy anniversary to the day that should have changed everything, but changed nothing. And I look at these pictures now because you know that they won't appear in any history books. And as we continue on with Donald Trump and MAGA's reign, they'll be erased from the internet, I'm sure. These people will be remembered centuries from now, probably as liberators and heroes, because that will be the history that is allowed to stand. You know, I as a little kid, as a child of history, and when I was deciding to major in political science in college, I remember thinking like how grand of an experiment America was, and how I was excited to really be inside and understand the inner workings of this, you know, this project of democracy, of government for and by the people. And I genuinely, it's almost comical now. I want to go back and pat little Danielle on her head and be like, oh, sweetie, that's cute. This idea of America that you've held and cherished for so long. But everything that we've been fed is a lie. Donald Trump right now is not moving any differently in Venezuela than his predecessors have. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, when you understand the history, and I put it out in videos that are up right now, the Monroe Doctrine, and you're going back centuries, and this idea of ownership, this colonized mind that these white men have had, is that the world is theirs to crack open. The world is theirs to divide up. We are just like collateral damage in their fight for manifest destiny and their fight for the title of imperial king. The people have never mattered. What's mattered has been conquering. The difference between what Donald Trump is doing now versus what has always been done is that he is just naked in his desire to dominate. Everyone else has said, well, we're doing it for democracy. We're spreading democracy around the world. Yeah, kind of like the pilgrims spread smallpox. Oh, it seemed like they were coming into this land of bounty, but then all they did was bring disease, chaos, and this idea of yours and mine. They're the ones that drew borders. They're the ones that created these things as states. Everyone was just living in community and tribes and sharing and bartering as the oldest civilization. It was the white man that came and said, this is mine and not yours, even in the face of those that wanted to share with them. So is Donald Trump like alien to the American psyche, or is he just the manifestation thereof of what has never faced accountability? Like that's, I mean, to me, those are the real questions that nobody seems to want to ask or examine because they're too layered and they're too nuanced and they're too deep. And I'm just like, when are we ever going to get to the truth? Because we don't ever ask the real fucking questions. Like we have wanted to believe that America is better than it is. And yet, the more that you peel back the onion of America, the more that you realize that no, Donald Trump is as American as apple pie and AR-15s. He is the embodiment, the fucking like emblem of greed, of evil, of domination, of misogyny, of hatred, of all of these things that we have tried to bury, hide, erase, ignore. That is him. And so are we surprised then that the thing that we choose to ignore then becomes the monster in our faces that now we can't ignore? January 6th should have been the end. And instead, what you realize, at least what I realized 5 years later, is that it was just the beginning. And that what I believe is going to be an era of violence and bloodshed in this country and around the world began because we once again chose to preserve a fictional story of America, exceptionalism, and institution than actually do what was necessary to really live up to the ideals of who America was supposed to be. And so now the monster, out of his cage, high on his own supply, is now carving up the world as if it is the 19th century. And honestly, we have no one to blame but ourselves. Because we've all participated in the fairy tale that has been the American story. We all wanted to believe that, oh, the civil rights, like, oh, they fought it and then they won and then everything was great and fine. No, it wasn't. It's never been. But like, if we were okay, then we just allowed for injustices to continue and told ourselves that those people that were still experiencing prejudice, racism, systemic oppression, homelessness, poverty, that was a fault of their own making, instead of a system that benefited some and ruined the rest. So I just feel as if we won't ever move forward until all of us, every single one of us, takes responsibility for allowing the fairy tale of America to persist for centuries. And that's why I look back at young Danielle, who wanted to major in politics and work on Capitol Hill and be a part of this grand project that allowed her family to come from the island of Jamaica and make a home. I wanted to be a part of the unfolding of America. And instead, I became one of the weavers of the lie. And so the thing that we have to grapple with, I think, is how we shake ourselves out, not just momentarily, not just every 4 years, but forever. Because the creation of something better doesn't just happen when you passively vote, when you pick up a ballot. It is constant vigilance, constant work, not struggle, but work. And that's just something that I don't think that most Americans are interested in doing. And so here we are. This is what the State Department put out this morning on that broke down social media site. This is our hemisphere. And President Trump will not allow our security to be threatened. We unleashed this monster on the world for a second fucking time. This is our hemisphere. This is the poisonous shit that they are spreading. Donald Trump, MAGA, America doesn't own the Western fucking hemisphere. It is filled with sovereign fucking nations who fought for their own independence, who have their own cultures, communities, governments, and way of life. This is our hemisphere. Fuck you and your colonizing ass. I tell you that this country is in for a rude awakening. Because we think that this is as bad as it's going to get. And I'm telling you, we are 6 fucking days into 2026. Donald Trump has already created massive instability around the world with his ruse in Venezuela. And I'm going to play for you this clip from this monster, Stephen Miller, so that you can hear him in his own fucking voice. Listen to what he is saying here about Greenland, about America, and about what they are owed. Take a listen.
Of Greenland and the Premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon. After that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish Prime Minister responded to this in an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, "I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says that he wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War." Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now, so I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United
Right, but
States,
your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation.
No, but
that's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'm not, and I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again, is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out. The United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. So
one last question, Steve.
So you hear him there, right? In his 19th century, 18th century, like colonizer, crusader mindset that the United States should own Greenland, a sovereign nation. I don't give a fuck if 2 people live on Greenland. It's not America's to take. Just like Venezuela's oil isn't theirs to take. But it is this mindset, and this mindset is run by whiteness and the idea that they can take and own people, property, resources, anything that they fucking want. This is not new thought to Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller isn't smart enough to have come up with this. This is centuries old, dark, dirty shit. This is the shit that started the Atlantic slave trade. This is the shit that started the dividing up of the world into pieces and everyone claiming what was not theirs. And they're doing it again. Except this time around, they aren't sending out explorers to go and conquer new lands with flags. They have billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar, close to trillions of dollars of military might behind them and nuclear bombs. There is a reordering of the world that is happening right now. And America is at the spear of the axis of evil. And these are the people that are in control. This is their mindset. It is important for us to understand. And so Stephen Miller asserts the U.S. has a right to take Greenland. It is headlines that then normalize this action. And then people in MAGA world start saying, well, why don't we have Greenland? Why isn't Greenland ours? Donald Trump is a hero for trying to get Greenland back. Him saying that nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. And this is what I want folks to understand. This quote right here is what stood out to me and stood the hairs up on my body. Quote, "We live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power." This is what Stephen Miller said. There are the iron laws of the world since the beginning of time. They see themselves as conquerors. They see themselves as the powerful. They are going to take what it is that they want, and they are daring the world to stop them. And the question that I continue is, when will Americans have had enough? We always love to fucking look at other countries and say, why aren't they standing up? Why aren't they fighting back? Knowing good goddamn well that the uprisings in Iran, the uprisings that we saw in China, those cost people their lives and they were out in the streets. It only costs Americans fucking brunch to be out on a Saturday. And that's what they do in spring and summer. But when it gets too cold, then people decide to stay inside. And because our protests are fucking seasonal. The world is looking at the American people, not Donald Trump, the people, and saying, when are you going to deal with your fucking lunatic? Because now he's not just our problem. He is the world's problem. And we made it the world's problem. The United States taking Greenland by force would rip apart the central agreement that underpins the NATO military alliance, of which Denmark and the United States are both founding members. Under that treaty, an attack on any member is treated as an attack on all members. Mr. Trump has previously said he would not rule out using the military to take Greenland. And then Stephen Miller went on in that psychopathic diatribe on CNN. The United States of America is running Venezuela, dismissing international treaties, enshrining a nation's right to independence and sovereignty as international niceties. What exactly is meant by running Venezuela is a matter of some dispute. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has shied away from the descriptor, even as Trump insists that the United States is very much in charge of Venezuela. And Speaker Mike Johnson, who has vigorously defended the military operation, has maintained that the United States is not engaged in military hostilities or in occupation. Then what the fuck would you call it? Because you're not giving the winner of the last election the opportunity to run the country, even as she fucking what this woman is doing, Machado, she doesn't deserve to run Venezuela. And I will say that, hands down, she does not deserve to run Venezuela. Because the capitulation and the self-flagellation, what she is doing to appease Donald Trump, going on Fox News saying that, no, I want him to hear it from me. I'll give him the Nobel Peace Prize myself. I'll do whatever he says. Then bitch, you don't deserve to run the country, actually. So what's the difference between you and the supposed person that is the VP that's running the country in name only? Nothing. If you're going to bend down and kiss Donald Trump's fucking diapered ass, then why the fuck would the Venezuelan people put any faith and stock in you? I think that Maria Machado basically tapped herself out of this entire thing with her carrying on with trying to appease Donald Trump. You look like a fucking fool. But on the part of Greenland, this was a joint statement that was put out this morning. Statement by Macron of France, Merz of Germany, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, Prime Minister Tusk of Poland, Prime Minister Sanchez of Spain, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, and Prime Minister Frederiksen of Denmark on Greenland. They wrote this: Arctic security remains a key priority for Europe, and it is critical for international and transatlantic security. NATO has made clear that the Arctic region is a priority, and European allies are stepping up. We and many other allies have increased our presence, activities, and investments to keep the Arctic safe and to deter adversaries. The Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland, is part of NATO. Security in the Arctic must therefore be achieved collectively in conjunction with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders. These are universal principles, and we will not stop defending them. The United States is an essential partner in this endeavor as a NATO ally, and through the defense agreement between the Kingdom of Denmark and the United States of 1951. Greenland belongs to its people. It is for Denmark and Greenland and them only to decide on the matters of Greenland. So, you know, folks, the fact is, I don't think that that statement was put out with enough force and enough might. Donald Trump responds to power. That's it. Like, that's what bullies respond to. They respond to power. So you saying that, well, we rely on the US as a part of NATO, they are telling you they don't give a fuck about your alliance. They are telling you that they don't give a fuck about sovereignty. They want what they want, and they're going to take what they want. So you sending a statement that says we expect you to work as our ally when they are clearly telling you otherwise signals to me that you don't have any like force behind your words. You look like the Democratic Party, and that's not a compliment. The Guardian, European leaders rally behind Greenland as U.S. ramps up threats. The Danish Foreign Policy Committee has called an extraordinary meeting, and this meeting is happening tomorrow. Meeting of the country's parliament for Tuesday night to discuss the Danish kingdom's relationship with the U.S. It will be attended by the foreign ministers, and here are their names. On Monday, Frederiksen said an attack by the U.S. on a NATO ally would mean the end of the military alliance and post-Second World War security. Yes, that is what Stephen Miller wants. It would, she said, be the end of everything. And this is where I need everybody to wake up. This is the end of everything. It's the end of the fantasy of America being the good guys. It is the end of the lie about wanting to spread democracy around the world as opposed to your power and the ability to extract, whether that is minerals or people, to your own ends. We are already at the end of everything. And it's this belief that I feel people need to be shaken out of. You're not going back to normal. There is no normal in this new world that we've been forced into. And so when are folks going to stop and say like, oh, you know, we need to hold on to democratic norms. We need to hold on to fucking what? What are you talking about? The old world and the old ways are dead. And Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, his keg's breath, his fucking Secretary of State are ensuring that it is dead. The United States is not a country to be trusted or to be partnered with. They are everyone's enemy. And I don't know how long it is going to take for the world collectively to wake up to that when we can't even wake up our neighbors to that reality. And so all of this that is transpiring in geopolitics does not deter us from this. As I said at the top, the Justice Department has released less than 1% of the Epstein files. Filings reveal. Federal law required a majority of the documents to be released on December 19th. Again, what day are we in? January 6th. But only 125,575 pages have been published. The Department of Justice has released less than 1% of the so-called Epstein files. Trump administration's lawlessness for keeping records under seal. The department conceded that only 12,285 documents totaling 125,575 pages relating to the disgraced financier and sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein have been published to date, despite a federal law requiring the vast majority to be released on December 19th. Pam Bondi wrote a 5-page update to Engelmeyer, the federal judge in New York overseeing the case, on Monday, asserting the efforts to protect the identities of Epstein victims were a priority. There are more than 2 million documents potentially responsive to the act that are in various phases of review, she wrote. So my question is, what is the purpose of laws if no one is going to be held accountable to following them? It's a charade. The judges act tough. You have to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. We don't do X, Y, or Z. The judge says, well, here's another 30 days. I know it must be hard to get your ducks in a row since you've been lying and hiding and redacting with Adobe Black for the last fucking several months to remove your boss's name. But like, the law is the law. So shouldn't somebody be held in contempt? Shouldn't there be police that are at the Department of Justice that are saying, release the files? Like, would you and I be given the same break from a federal judge that gave us a deadline? And then we as individuals say, well, we're having a tough time. So here's my 5-page letter of like regret as to why I can't meet your deadline. How would that work out for anybody? It wouldn't. So explain to me the precedent that we continue to set with these motherfuckers that keep testing the fences and nothing happens to them. I'm just so exhausted. I really am. Like, I get to these points where I'm just like, honestly, some days I'm just like, I don't know why I still do this. I don't know why I still try and talk to people, still try and wake people up, still trying to inform people. Because it's like, as my sister said, the good guys never seem to win. Right? It's just always the bad people that continue to get away with, continue to make money off of our backs, continue to be the ones to write the laws that they don't have to follow, but the rest of us have to follow. We always feel, at least I always feel, like we're 20, 30, 40 steps behind. And yet these are fucking Bond villains. They're telling us the plot. They're writing things out. They have Project 2025. They have Project 2026. And yet I have yet to see, where's the rebuttal to it? Where's the plan to stop it? And because of the lack of imagination that our supposed elected leaders have, we're here. The new conquerors, the new oppressors. What's old is new again. They erase history only so that they can continue to repeat it over and fucking over and over again. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And I some days am at a lack of words. Because I'm like, what can I offer you all that is good? Today, absolutely fucking nothing. And just so that we are clear on what Donald Trump is doing, right? Just so we are clear, because he's getting ready to brief the oil tycoons on his, latest conquest, right? Because that's what Venezuela was. It was a conquest for his oil-rich donors, who are the ones that are building that monstrosity of a fucking ballroom, right? He needs to pay them back. It's a quid pro quo, as I said on yesterday's show. And so he was on MS Now's Joe Scarborough on his call with Trump. It's all about the oil. Oh, really, Joe? Thank you for the breaking news. The president's response, Joe, the difference between Iraq and this is that Bush didn't keep the oil. We're going to keep the oil. And to underline his point, Trump said his comments were no longer on background and said, in 2016, I said we should have kept the oil. It caused a lot of controversy. Well, we should have kept the oil, he said. And we're going to rebuild their broken down oil facilities. And this time we're going to keep the oil. It's his world. We're just living in it until we decide otherwise. Because this is really a decision. It is the decision of the masses. Revolutions were fought over less. I just don't know when America will develop the appetite to do what our predecessors have. I just really don't know. Speaking of which, so last night everybody was cheering on the Hilton hotels, in thinking that the Hilton actually was deciding not to house ICE agents. No, it was just that particular Hilton that was in Minnesota that decided to kick them out. The actual Hilton, the franchise, came out in support of ICE with their statement. And not only have they come out in support of ICE, just so you know, in your next visits, right, in your next vacations, if you can afford to take them, don't stay at any fucking Hilton-owned properties and maybe dig in a little bit. Not only have they decided to put out a statement in support of ICE, but the hotel in Minnesota that did deny them entry, they have gone so far as to punish that hotel and remove them from the Hilton's reservation system. So now they're on their own. Hilton is punishing the hotel that refused to house ICE agents and officers, removing it from Hilton's reservation system. So you know, this is who these people are. So I just want to make clear, because folks were all excited about the Hilton and I'm going to stay at the Hilton, blah, blah, blah. No. The Hilton needs the Target treatment. It needs the Tesla treatment. Fuck them. Fuck all of them. Fuck the family. Fuck the entire company, the franchise. Fuck all of them. We'll see what happens moving forward. And just to close things out, I'm going to play 2 clips of Donald Trump, because I want you to hear how Donald Trump is talking about the upcoming midterms and how he is thinking about, whether or not we're going to have elections. And let me see which one is first.
The worst job. They had
Not that one. Hold 1 second. We want this one.
win the presidency, you lose the midterm. So you're all brilliant people. Most of you are in this business longer than me. That makes me smarter than you, because look where I am, right? No, it doesn't. But I wish you could explain to me what the hell's going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy. They don't. They have horrible policy. They do stick together. They're violent. They're vicious. They're vicious people.
That was Donald Trump talking about Democrats and not understanding why he's on the path to losing the midterm elections if he allows them to happen. And then I want to play for you this, which was, how everything with Donald Trump starts out as a joke, or as the media loves to tell us, it is a joke. Oh, he's just kidding. And I loved Aaron Parnez's comment here when he said, Donald Trump is like a comedian testing out content. It all starts off like a joke, except with Trump, that joke becomes increasingly more serious, and I would add, more dangerous as time passes. So take a listen to Donald Trump about future elections.
President did the worst job. They had the worst policy. We have to even run against these people. Now, I won't say cancel the election. They should cancel the election because the fake news will say, he wants the elections canceled. He's a dictator. They always call me a dictator. Nobody's worse than Obama.
Oh, yeah, the black man that tried to give you free healthcare, and now no one has healthcare. The healthcare subsidies have now expired, and they had no plans of ever putting anything in its place over the 15 years that we were all accessing healthcare. So that's where we are. Donald Trump is the monster that America could have put down on January 6, 2021. And 5 years later, he is more emboldened and more unleashed than he has ever been in his entire life, because he has faced no consequences. Not in his 79 long, miserable fucking years on this planet has that man faced a consequence. And now he's carving up the world. And the question is, when will Americans decide to stop him? When will anyone decide to stop him? That is where I leave us today. Dear friends, before I get out of here today, I want to thank you all so much for being nimble with me and needing to go live earlier today. I will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, but this one I needed to get out to you earlier. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I want to thank Meredith for becoming a YouTube member, a paid YouTube member. Thank you so much. I want to thank Ernst, as always, for your $5. Susan, our fabulous moderator, for not only gifting a membership, but putting some coins in my pocket. Thank you for the $10 and the $5. Susan, I appreciate you all so very much. Folks, I know that it is tough times out there, but if you have the ability to just like, comment, subscribe, share this show across your platforms, feed the algorithms, it does such a service. And if you are watching this later on my Substack, The Damn Digest, if you have the ability, consider becoming a paid subscriber. I am running a 20% off promotion for the new year that you will have forever. So if you do have the ability, think about becoming a paid subscriber, but do know I'm a terrible capitalist and all of my content will remain free. But for those that have the ability to monetarily support, please consider doing so. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. As always, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. Be well.